This is a Quickie of Ice and Fire. Sir Duncan the Tall, Part 2, The Sworn Sword. It's one thing to be a hedge knight, and quite another to be a sworn sword. Sir Duncan the Tall finds this out the hard way, a year and a half into Egg's squirehood, taking service with Sir Eustace Osgrey of Standfast in the Reach. The old cheeky lion is far more infamous than he appeared, and his arch nemesis, the Red Widow, is more than just kissed by fire. Dunk and Egg had visited Dorne and Oldtown. They even visited Maester Aemon at the Citadel, who measured Dunk's height and found him to be an inch shy of 7 feet, though Dunk may have grown some since. Growing was the one thing he was good at. Egg was given a mule named Maester by his older brother as well, and a good thing it was, because Sweetfoot met with tragedy and perished in Dorne. Now they found themselves in the service of the old cheeky lion himself, Eustace Osgrey. The summer after the Great Spring Sickness was the driest ever in recent memory. A great drought had swept the land, and even the Kingswood was on fire. Rain was on vacation. Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield, a rotten man with a smell to match, was chewing sourleaf and staring at the dry stream bed when Dunk arrived back at Standfast. Bennis was a knight in the service of Sir Eustace as well. However, not all knights are of equal measure. A wretch of a man, and a straight-up arse, Sir Bennis wasn't much for poking his nose where it don't belong. Dunk had known him as a boy, while squiring for Sir Arlen of Pennytree. Bennis used to pinch him underneath the arm, and had been doing the same to Egg, much to the little prince's displeasure. When Dunk started turning over rocks, Bennis of the Brown Shield was, to say the least, displeased, and told him as much. Dunk and Bennis eventually found the source of the stream's blockage. The Red Widow had ordered a dam constructed to divert water to their fields of crops and orchards, they assumed. Dunk and Bennis came upon the dam at its completion with 20 or so peasants going about their work. Sir Bennis was in fine form when he demanded that the peasants tear down the dam immediately. One man more than stood his ground and paid dearly for it, as the Brown Knight slashed his face to the bone. Blood had been spilled, and since the age of heroes, only blood can pay for blood, as Sir Duncan the Tall and his companions were about to find out. As to be expected, Sir Eustace was outraged, and told Dunk of how they were old cheeky waters, and it had been in his family for ages. After a story of days gone by about heritage and how Sir Osgrey fought for the king in the Blackfire rebellions, it was decided that Dunk would be the cheeky lion's envoy. For Sir Eustace vowed to never set foot on Weber land until the cheeky lion's banners were raised above the parapets of Cold Moat Castle once more. The lands and castle had once belonged to the Osgreys before the defeat of Daemon Blackfire at the Battle of Redgrass Field. Sir Eustace's 3 sons had also perished in the battle. Dunk brought along his best doublet, which happened to be the one he acquired while serving the Lady Vaith in Dorne. It had his sigil, a shooting star over a solitary elm on a sunset field, and Sir Duncan wanted to make sure he looked presentable and respectable, even though it was unmistakably Dornish. He made sure not to put it on until he reached Coldmoat, for he feared of being drenched in sweat by the time he arrived. So he gave it to his squire, and he and Egg were off to treat with the Red Widow. They had arrived after a dry and oppressively hot ride, passing by dried-up crops and woods as dry as kindling, only to find out that the Red Widow was indeed diverting the stream, not to her crops or orchards, but to her moat. Dunk had heard many tales of the Red Widow before arriving. She had been widowed 4 times, was a rumored poisoner, and was fond of sewing people in sacks and dropping them into the bottom of the stream. Upset about the moat and nervous about the Red Widow's reputation, Dunk donned his nicest clothes and headed into Coldmoat with his squire in tow. When they reached the gates, Dunk was permitted inside, but Egg had to wait without. While in the castle courtyard, Dunk spied a petite red-haired woman who was practicing at archery, and a man, nearly as big as he was, amongst others. Sir Lucas Inchfield was his name, the Long Inch the man was called, was almost 6'7", the Castilian, and an imposing man to most, was the first person Dunk encountered, along with the flatulating Septon. After a few tense moments, the Long Inch agrees to grant him an audience with the Lady of Coldmoat and presents him to a shy older woman. Little did Dunk know he had been deceived by the Long Inch and already made the butt of a jape. The lady in question was the Red Widow's sister by marriage. As it happened, the short redhead that he saw with a bow in hand was the Red Widow herself, the Lady Rohanne of Coldmoat. By the time he was granted an actual audience, Dunk's ears had turned red. He did not go unnoticed by the Lady Rohanne, who scolded the Long Inch for his jape and apologized to Dunk for a Castilian's bad hospitality. The Red Widow was nothing like he had imagined. Small, beautiful, fierce, and hair kissed by fire, Sir Duncan the Tall could not help but admire her. Her long red hair was in a braid that went well past her waist, and she was far younger than what he had pictured in his head. He had not prepared for this, or so he thought. Eventually, after some flirtatious introductions, Dunk attended to the matters at hand. He offered the terms that Sir Eustace sent him with. Silver would be paid for the man who was wounded by Sir Bennis, and the dam in turn would be torn down. The Red Widow denied the request, presenting a royal decree stating that the stream was her property. When Dunk dared to mention Sir Eustace's son Adam, he received a clout on the face he would never forget. Lady Rohanne was stronger than she appeared. Offended, she demanded he leave before she sews him in a sack and throws him in the stream herself. The flatulent Sefton takes Dunk and Egg aside, telling them that Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield must be handed over by tomorrow. After confronting Sir Eustace, he finally told Dunk of the history and true nature of how he lost his ancestral lands. House Osgrey had fought for the Black Dragon and would-be usurper Daemon Blackfire, bastard son of Aegon the Unworthy. Adam had paid for his father's mistake with his life. Lady Rohanne never forgave Sir Eustace for sending him into battle, for she and Adam were very close when they were young. House Weber had fought for the rightful king, Daeron II Targaryen. Sir Eustace was a traitor, and Dunk felt betrayed by the old man who he had grown to respect, admire, and even defend. Dunk the Lunk, thick as a castle wall, he thought. He even helped young and old men prepare to fight and defend Standfast. And for what? To die for a traitor and liar? Dunk was finished. He and Egg would leave on the morrow in search of work somewhere else. He had always wanted to see the wall. Maybe he would see an old black brother who looked like him. He never knew his parents, but if they weren't dead, they had to be somewhere. Dunk went to bed for his last night in Standfast, or so he thought. He woke up to screams and shouts of fire. Watts Wood was aflame, and the night was alive with dancing gouts of fire and embers. Everyone suspected the Red Widow had set the forest ablaze. Dunk wasn't so sure, and he was quick to stop Sir Eustace from trying to send his pitiful peasant army to attack and die at the hands of the Red Widow. Sir Duncan the Tall offered to go and treat with Lady Rohanne once again, to the surprise of Sir Eustace. Sir Bennis is left behind, while Sir Eustace and Dunk depart for Coldmoat. Once they got to the stream, Sir Eustace would go no further, because of the vow he had made to himself. And that's where they waited until the Red Widow and her party arrived. Lady Rohanne arrived with the Long Inch preceding her, and denied having anything to do with the burning of Watts Wood. Dunk met her in the middle of the stream alone to parley, to no avail. The odds were stacked against them, and Dunk had no choice but to use the boot, a golden onyx signet that was given to them by Egg's father, Maekar, in times of peril. Lady Rohanne was shocked and understood the message. However, she still required payment. Dunk took out his dagger and slashed his own face as payment for the disfigured man whom Sir Bennis molested. A cheek for a cheek. Even if she wanted to make peace, she could not. Before her father passed away, he put Lucas Inchfield in charge of making sure that Lady Rohanne wed a man worthy of her. Unfortunately, the Long Inch believes himself to be that man, and has made sure no other suitor hung around. He intimidated every man he encountered until he met Dunk. Vehemently denying having burned the wood, the Red Widow demanded Sir Eustace formally apologize. Sir Eustace refused to apologize. So, it was determined that Sir Duncan the Tall and Sir Lucas Inchfield were to have a trial by battle. The stream dividing their lands was the battleground. Both mounted knights slowly paced toward the other, Sir Lucas Inchfield on his heavily armored chestnut courser, and Sir Duncan mounted on his big destrier, Thunder. They met in the middle of the stream to the clash and splash of steel, flesh, and water. Sir Lucas with his poleaxe and Dunk with his sword exchanged blows with one another. neither one finding an advantage as of yet. Dunk did notice a weak point under his opponent's arm, however, and so they fought while Dunk looked for his opportunity, until a deflected blow off of Dunk's shield struck Thunder in the neck. The horse reared up and struck the Long Inch in the face and shoulder. In a tangle, the two horses went down and the dueling knights with them. Dunk found his way back to the surface and realized he was without a sword. His scabbard was empty, but he still had his shield. The Long Inch rose from the water right in front of Dunk. In between blocking furious and savage blows from Sir Lucas, Dunk lunged and tackled the man into the stream. Both knights were underwater. Sir Duncan the Tall held Sir Lucas at the bottom of the lake with one arm, while reaching for his dagger. He fumbled, and finally found it, as the Long Inch was desperately hitting him with a rock. Through the ringmail and boiled leather, he shoved the dagger in the weak point under the opposing knight's armpit, and felt his life slowly float away and downstream. Dunk was drowning, and wounded, but he had won. The last thing he saw was a long and white and slender fish. He woke up in Cold Moat Castle. The maester told him that Sir Eustace and Lady Rohanne had been wed. It was a win-win for both, as the Lady Rohanne was close to losing her land if she did not marry, and the old cheeky lion Sir Eustace saw his banners fly over Cold Moat once more. Though he fought for the Black Dragon, he was at heart a good man, and their houses and lands were happily united. Duncan the Tall fell back to sleep with the sound of rain hitting the roof. Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield lived up to his reputation and proceeded to sack Standfast while everyone was gone. He tied up the castle caretakers and then stole everything he could carry. Sir Bennis had disappeared, and Dunk yearns to make him pay for his crimes. Sir Duncan didn't see her until he and Egg were set to leave. Lady Rohanne offered for Dunk to come into her service and wished him to stay. He was not convinced, and perhaps even heartbroken, that the Red Widow had wed. He can't stay, and he tells her this. He had always wanted to see the wall. Then Lady Rohanne tried to give him a gift to make amends before he left. A blood bay with a long fiery mane named Flame, to remember her by. Dunk refused the horse, saying it was too good for the likes of him, but he does know a gift he would prefer. Dunk grabbed her braid and awkwardly pulled him toward her. He leaned in and kissed her, his first kiss. He learned more about kissing this day than he had ever learned from watching. The Red Widow demanded he take the horse. Dunk pulled his dagger from his scabbard and cut off a lock of her braid to remember her by, and said, "It wasn't a horse I wanted." His time as Sir Eustace Osgrey's sworn sword was at an end, and so Dunk and Egg take their leave and head north, toward the wall. Leave some of your favorite moments from the Dunk and Egg series below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Join the crazy crew today and get insane amounts of extras. And a very special thank you to my crazy companions: Amy True, Anime Lover Nicole, Bobby Catalano, Catherine Cronin, Catherine Harding, Clarissa Thompson, Dark Mother, John St. Baptiste, Casey of House Lorebridge, Katrin C. from My Point of View, Nancy T., Suntivia Major, Steve York, thepodcastthat.com, that family of podcasts. Thanks so much for watching, and this has been a Quickie of Ice and Fire.